Good evening, Professor Mueller. So I wanted to address the three questions you mentioned. The first one being to interview two people that have lived and worked internationally on assignments. So there's two people that I reached out to last night. Brad George, who I used to work with, who was an engineering manager at Caterpillar, and then Jill Weiss, who was a project engineer with me in Joliet, Illinois. Brad was from Peoria, Illinois. Jill's husband is actually a vice president still currently at Caterpillar. And over the last 2 years, she has decided to be a stay-at-home mom to support him, but she's fantastic as well, was a fantastic project engineer. So let's start with Brad. So he is working as a factory director of 325 employees of the European drivetrain division. So he's been in Northern Ireland for the last 2 years. And so what he had talked to me about was, you know, it's very similar, you know, European English, things like that as far as the languages. But the culture is very different. So U.S. is very fast-paced, whereas there it's slower to get decisions made. They only work 34-hour weeks. Friday, Saturday, Sunday is off. Saturday is nearly impossible to try to get anybody to work. Saturday is dedicated, it's non-negotiable and dedicated to European football and rugby matches, he mentioned. So there's not that inherent sense of urgency that we have in the United States. You know, some of the global knowledge he mentioned to be successful or learn the European labor laws. That was very eye-opening for him. The European and United Kingdom supply chain is very different, very efficient with material movement, he mentioned, in Europe. And then Jill Weiss, so as I mentioned, Carl Weiss is the VP of Material Handling and the Underground Division. And so he's overseeing both Europe and Asia. And so her kind of feedback to me was, be comfortable with change. You know, you got to learn the cultures as you mentioned and taught us. And also one key point that resonated to me was you have to have a strong relationship with your spouse, because it's really you two against the world when you come over here to foreign countries. So, you know, it was really good to catch up with both of them. I hadn't talked to them in a while, so this was a really good exercise. So the second question is to rate myself 1 through 10 on what, how I feel my multicultural experience is and what skills I need for myself. And so originally I would say I was at probably a 2 or 3 before I came here. I'll be very transparent. I'm probably about a 4. I don't think in a week that I could say that I've gained, you know, 2-3 points. But it has been very eye-opening. So what skills do I specifically need to work on is, you know, I've always thought I was pretty good adapting to change, and that's easy when, you know, when you're domestic, right? And so moving around Illinois area, even going to different states, it's all this pretty much the same. When you come here, it's their culture, and we need to adapt to that. So that's a skill that I really need to beef myself up on. Articulating my thoughts has been very eye-opening for me, is standing by my opinion. Standing alone is one of the skill sets that I need to work on. Getting outside my comfort zone, right? So getting to meet other people, exploring, you know, the different cultures. And that brings me to my next point is research. I don't do a lot of research just because I get, you know, I don't want to make excuses, but with work and going to school, but I need to research what's going on in the bigger world. And part of that is international travel. Whenever I take a vacation, it's usually with my wife, and it's domestic. So what am I going to do to close the gap in the next 5 years? So I've reached out to a mentor in Singapore, actually, who is leading the global headquarters for our pet care facility. So I've set up a mentor with him, and I will measure it by having monthly conversations with him and learning more about what his experiences are and where does he see what I can benefit from and what I can learn from, and have those discussions with him, and continue to research what's going on in the world. I'm going to put it in my development goals for this year and make sure they're being tracked by my boss, and have those conversations with him too as I get closer to completing this degree, as you and I talked about, next summer. So I'll have that experience and knowledge to make that an informed decision rather based on then kind of just a limited experience of what I've seen in the world. So that's pretty much it for me. Thank you.